Becky was the first of 6 children. She grew up in a peaceful and loving home, and she had come accustomed to chaos and noise due to the large household that she grew up in. Becky was unlucky with the last university entrance exams as she did not reach the cutoff score for pharmacy. She really wanted to become a pharmacist and she was distraught, but her parents encouraged her and enrolled her for extra tutorials to help her pass. Becky worked hard for months and eventually rewrote the exams and passed with a score of 465. She finally gained admission to the prestigious university in Ibadan. Becky was filled with joy and could hardly contain herself while she shopped for the required things she would need for school. Becky's parents were rich and influential, but they made sure their kids experienced the authentic side of life. While the driver drove Becky and her mom around to do her school shopping, they also made sure Becky was pricing the goods properly in the market. Becky was smart and a quick learner. She wore plain clothes when shopping in the market and drove a good bargain. "Madam, is this wig for 60,000 naira? No." After a few weeks of intense shopping, Becky eventually got everything she needed for school and she was set to go. Even though Becky's parents could afford to rent her an apartment in the town her school was located, they felt it was much safer for her to be with her colleagues on campus, as it would also help her gain an authentic experience in school. However, unknown to her, her parents had gone and refurbished a dorm room for her on campus. As they had connections in high places, they made sure that she and her roommates had their own refurbished toilet and bathroom. They had also carefully picked her roommates. The granddaughter of the chief treasurer of the school and the niece of the vice-chancellor were chosen to be her roommates. Her parents were satisfied that Becky would enjoy her stay on campus. If only they knew. On a bright and sunny Saturday afternoon, Becky's parents dropped her off on campus, accompanied by her immediate younger sister and best friend. They were born in the same year, just 11 months apart. Becky's sister, May, could not stop the tears as she felt she was losing her best friend. Becky reassured her that their relationship will continue as usual, just over the phone for now. Their drivers offloaded the luggage and took them into her room and went for a quick drive with her dad to refill her gas for her stove, while the ladies helped Becky unpack and fix things into her wardrobes and cupboards. Once Becky was fully settled, they bought her dinner and had to be on their way. Becky cried her eyes out as she would miss her family so much, but her real life had just begun. On Sunday morning, Becky was awakened by a key in the knob. She jumped up from her tiny bed to see her roommates struggling with their luggage and smiling at her. "Hi, could you please help us roll this bag in?" Evelyn asked. "Hello, sure thing," said Becky. They introduced themselves and begged for her help with the rest of their things. She gladly obliged. They were all first-year pharmacy students. Even though Becky had to spend an extra year at home before getting this admission, the girls were all the same age. They were excited to meet each other and tried to get to know each other better. In their minds, this was going to be the tightest relationship on campus. Becky was used to early mornings, so on Monday she was up by 5 a.m., got ready for the day, and settled down for her morning devotion. She was deep in Bible study when the other girls woke up. She waved at them and continued with her study. Their first day on campus was eventful. The queues for course registration were long, and Amelia, the vice-chancellor's niece, decided to go and get something to eat. Becky noticed that when Amelia came back to the queue, she smelled funny, like she smelled of weed, but she paid no mind to it. As they were in a crowded place, she thought it was just her imagination. They luckily finished with their registration by dusk and strolled back to their dorms tired and exhausted. Sister Felicia in the hostel always made rice and stew for sale in the evenings, and they rushed to her room to book one plate each before it finishes. Luckily, they were able to secure their dinner. The ladies got along very well as roommates until they got a little too familiar. One fateful day, Becky got back early from school as the lecturer for inorganic chemistry for that class was indisposed. She met Amelia in the room with one of their male friends, and they were smoking from a contraption that she had never seen before. Becky had only seen street touts smoke weed, and it was always rolled up in paper, but this was different. Her shock was so apparent on her face, and she couldn't believe her eyes. "Amelia, what the hell are you doing?" she shouted. But Ochuk and Femi were too high to even communicate with her. They just stared at her, puffed some more, and started kissing each other. Becky could not believe her eyes. She ran to Sister Felicia's room and started sobbing. Sister Felicia was an anatomy student and had spent 6 years in that school. There was nothing she had not seen. She consoled Becky and opened up to her that Ochuk had been caught smoking on many occasions, but because she is related to a high-ranking school official, nothing could be done to her. Becky quickly placed a call to Evelyn and explained the situation. Evelyn didn't say much, but promised to continue the discussion when she gets home, as she was busy. The next morning, the three girls sat down to discuss, and even though Becky was livid and wanted Amelia to stop smoking entirely, Evelyn just advised her to not do it in their room. This discussion riled up Amelia. Even though she hid her anger perfectly, she plotted to deal with her roommates, as she felt they had no right to tell her what to do, especially in the space that they all shared. Amelia gradually withdrew from the friendship group. She gave excuses not to walk to class together, and excuses on their regular outings, until they hardly had anything to discuss or in common anymore. One fateful day, Amelia came back from classes late and decided to stand outside their dorm door to eavesdrop on what Becky and Evelyn might be discussing, as they stopped discussing personal issues with her or around her. Amelia had Becky tell Evelyn that she was now dating and the guy was a newbie in their fellowship. She talked glowingly about her new love, while Amelia listened intently from outside the door. She heard Becky say, "I am not sure about what my parents will think about me having a boyfriend in my first year." She immediately put her key in the lock and the discussion stopped. She smiled at the girls. They waved back at her. She smiled to herself and knew she had found the perfect revenge. Amelia started watching Becky more intently, and even tried to get into her iPhone to get the boyfriend's number, but was unable to. One fateful evening, Becky spent the day at her boyfriend, Dennis's apartment. However, as she prepared to leave, she forgot the book she had been reading all day, in preparation for her anatomy end-of-semester test the next day. A few minutes after Becky settled onto her bed, they heard a knock on the door. Amelia answered the door and asked, "Who is that?" Dennis answered, "It is me, Dennis. I am looking for Becky." Amelia jumped out of the bed before anyone else, and quickly opened the door. She smiled widely, while standing seductively, and introduced herself to Dennis as one of Becky's friends and roommates. "It's so nice to finally meet you, Dennis. I didn't even know that Becky had any male friends." Becky and Evelyn looked at each other and hid their smiles. Then Dennis gave Becky the textbook she forgot and told her that he knew she would still want to revise before tomorrow. Becky collected the book, said thank you, and started to walk Dennis out. Amelia had now met Dennis, knew his name and face, and hatched a plan to deal with Becky. Over the next few weeks, she kept on bumping into Dennis everywhere on purpose, as she had him trailed and memorized his weekly itinerary and the places he frequently visits. She bumped into him at his barber's shop, after his last class on a Monday, at his favorite eatery, and the last straw for him and Becky was when she showed up at their fellowship. Dennis confronted her and asked her what she really wanted. Nothing, I am not following you around, you know that this campus is really small, she said. Dennis knew she was lying, but he just walked away, as the gentleman that he was. What they didn't know was that Amelia was trying to get information and pictures on Becky and Dennis, in order to get them expelled or put on suspension due to her anger and jealousy. However, unknown to Amelia, Becky was very close to her mom and sister, May. She spoke to them almost every day and told them everything going on with her. When Amelia thought she had gathered enough information, she stole Becky's father's phone number from her uncle's phone. She sent him all the evidence she had gathered. Becky's father woke up to pictures and videos of his daughter on campus with a guy he had never seen. He stood up in a rage, took a shower and stormed out of the house with his driver. Becky's mom was in the study, doing her morning prayers and was unaware of what was going on. Becky's father stormed into her hostel a few hours later, told her to pack a bag and get into the car. Becky was confused, but would never disobey her father. She looked at Evelyn, panicked and quickly packed a bag and got into the jeep. They drove in silence for 3 hours to Lagos, and Becky kept on thinking about what might have happened for her dad to come pick her up, and in anger too. As soon as they arrived home, Becky's mother was shocked to see them and asked what happened. Is this not my Becky? Daddy, Becky, what happened? Becky's father dragged his wife into the room and showed her all the evidence sent to him. She looked at them and burst into laughter. She then unlocked her phone and showed him some of those similar pictures and her chat with Becky. As Becky was chatting with her almost every single day, she knew the backstory and could explain everything to her husband. I know Dennis, he comes from a good home. Yes, he is in a relationship with our daughter and I am aware. You remember Deaconess Bright that came to our church anniversary in London? Dennis is her son, and he is a good boy. She proceeded to tell her husband about Amelia and everything that had been happening with the girls in the hostel. Her husband was flabbergasted, sad that Becky did not also confide in him. Then his attitude turned sullen and he went to apologize to his daughter. He told her to forgive him and he was sorry for not listening to her side of the story. He also told her he was going to rent an apartment for her in town to share with Evelyn from their second year. Becky was ecstatic as she and Evelyn had become best of friends and got along so well. It was already exam season, and it would be too hectic to start moving now, so she agreed to wait out the next few weeks of the semester on campus. Unknown to Becky, her dad had called for a meeting with the vice-chancellor and the chief treasurer. He explained to the vice-chancellor how his niece Amelia had sent him pictures and videos trying to implicate his daughter. He expressed his displeasure and that he was transferring his daughter to another secure location outside campus. The men apologized to each other, shook hands and promised to be better to their words. If you enjoyed this story, watch out for the concluding part, coming soon.